Hi there, my name is Shyla McKay, and this is my presentation on Refined Craftsmanship and Exquisite Beauty, the Art of Lacquer Work in the Goryeo Dynasty, article written by Patricia Frick. So, about the author, Patricia Frick. The author of this article, I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Patricia Frick, she has been a curator at the Museum of Lacquerware in Münster, Germany since 2007. She has been regularly publishing work in the field of East Asian arts and crafts since 1998. Currently, she is Vice President of the European Association of Asian Art and Archaeology, or the EAAA. Before her employment in Münster, she was an assistant curator at the East Asian Department of the Linden Museum in Stuttgart. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. She worked there for several years as a lecturer at the Institute for East and South Asian Studies of Würzburg University as well. So, Dr. Patricia Frick, she studied Chinese and Japanese studies, English literature, and law. She spent her academic years at Hangzhou University in China, at the Palace Museum of Taipei in Taiwan, and at Cambridge University in the United Kingdom. In 2006, she obtained her doctorate at the University of Würzburg with a thesis on Song Dynasty garments in the light of ritual regulations. So clearly she knows what she's talking about. She's an experienced academic. So Dr. Frick's main argument is that the article it addresses how this pristine lacquerware, this intricate mother-of-pearl inlay, and inlaid celadon were techniques that were perfected by the Goryeo dynasty in Korea. There is some evidence to support the idea that the mother-of-pearl inlay and lacquerware combined itself began in Goryeo dynasty Korea as well. She acknowledges that it is not universally accepted by the art history community due to there being, relatively at least, so little evidence. But Dr. Frick explains that this is likely due to poor preservation tactics throughout history, and she also does an amazing job of giving context to the evidence so that what, again, just relatively little evidence there is, it does still stand strong. So, let's see, methodology and evidence. Dr. Patricia Frick uses fairly standard methodology as far as art history writing goes, but she executes it in a highly intentional way that allows the information to come across in a particularly effective manner. First, she addresses historical context. She then tells us about events and timelines that we know are certain to be accurate, and she does this to support her evidence and provide historical context. But she also does this to give a background and help the reader to fully understand, even if you're not an expert in this specific topic for this field. This approach helped me personally better understand the material, particularly better than the last reading presentation I did. It was very layman's terms friendly. So the evidence that Dr. Frick does use falls into three main categories. Evidence that exists in the form of preserved written documentation, the handful of pieces that have been preserved and kept safe in museum collections. It's really only a handful, like genuinely just around 20 pieces according to the article that she wrote. And the last category that her evidence falls into is just characteristics and motifs that make Goryeo lacquerware distinct and kind of differentiated from other ceramics in the region and during that time period. Terminology. Some important terms used in Dr. Frick's article are listed here. As far as I know, they're all Korean terms. Most of them indicate a specific technique in decorating ceramics from Goryeo dynasty Korea. So first there's mohap, which is mother box, used to contain multiple smaller boxes. Then there's jahap, which is the smaller inner boxes. These terms kind of refer to like nesting boxes. There's cheongja, which is just generally inlaid celadon. Na jian shigli, which is lacquer that's decorated with highly, highly intricate mother-of-pearl inlay. There's mojo beop, which describes the fine hairlines that are engraved in mother-of-pearl to then be placed on surface to decorate. And then last is the kun yumjil, which is extremely thin-cut mother-of-pearl pieces and fragments that are used on the surface, typically of lacquerware, to build up intricate geometric or floral designs. So, the first category of Dr. Frick's evidence is the written documentation. There are a handful of texts that she includes, and the first was written by a man named Xu Jing. He was a Chinese scholar and calligrapher who stayed in Goryeo, Korea for just over a month during the Xuanni reign period under Emperor Huizong, the 11th emperor of northern Song dynasty China, which reigned for about 26 years between 1100 and 1126. Xu Jing was incredibly detailed and documented every aspect of Goryeo, Korea that he came across. Part of why I find Dr. Frick so convincing is because she has such a detailed, in-depth reference list. She doesn't just reference the written work alone, she references certain chapters or specific parts of the written work. And these are references that have evidence of lacquerware in Goryeo, Korea. For this documentation, she finds two passages that support her main arguments in this documentation specifically. One in chapter 15 that talks about saddles and saddle cloths, which have ornate mother-of-pearl inlay. And another reference of her topic is in chapter 23, which talks about mother-of-pearl inlay, other inlay, and the exquisite craftsmanship of lacquerware in Korea. There were illustrations, but those were lost by 1126. I imagine this document was an incredible find for Dr. Frick. Next is another written work that Dr. Frick uses to support her arguments. It's called the Goryeo, or the History of the Goryeo Dynasty. This was written during early Joseon period under King Sejong, and it was made to be a part of the Royal Chronicles. Most of this document talks about the local types of craftsmen, like woodworkers, painters, polishers, etc. The Goryeo is also the oldest source that explicitly refers to lacquerware with mother-of-pearl inlay. Chapter 25 is a biography of the civil servant, Moon Gong-in. He was part of a legation which was tasked with visiting the Liao dynasty and bringing gifts. These gifts included paintings, calligraphy, but most importantly for this article and for Dr. Frick, these gifts included lacquer objects with mother-of-pearl inlay. The Dongguk Munheon, Bigo, or the Collection of Reference Documents on Korea, is an encyclopedia that was created in 1770 under King Yeonggyo. According to this document, King Yezhong, who ruled 1105 to 1122, had personal gifts sent to the ruling family of the Liao dynasty of the Khitans. They had power in the north of the Chinese Empire. Among these gifts were paintings, calligraphies, fans, standing screens, but again, more importantly for Dr. Frick, more lacquerware with mother-of-pearl inlay. This had become custom after Moon Gong-in and his legation's initial gifts. Okay, so then the last written document that supports Dr. Frick's argument is the Ha-e-dong Yi Oksa, or the History of Korea. In this text, there is a chapter included on diplomatic visits that describes countless lacquer objects with mother-of-pearl inlay being sent to the mainland of China. One example of this is under King Injong's reign, which was between 1122 and 1146. There were containers with lacquer and mother-of-pearl inlay, which were designed to hold inkstones and ink brushes. These containers were gifted to the imperial court of Song, China. All of these text references combined make it clear that lacquer objects with mother-of-pearl inlay were an important part of diplomatic relations for Goryeo Kingdom, not just to like their artwork and craftsmanship. The technical perfection and distinct aesthetics made them to be considered very high value. For this reason, these objects became common gifts and tributary payments for neighboring states. Here's a picture of a Celadon cosmetic box. This would be the mohap, and on this next slide, you would see the full set. So this is a full Celadon cosmetic set with the mohap, the mother box containing the jahap, the like tiny kind of baby boxes nesting inside of it. Okay, so then the next category of evidence used by Dr. Patricia Frick is the preserved pieces that still exist today. There are not many left, as I said previously, only about 20 pieces in collections worldwide, but they speak volumes alongside the other evidence. So, the art of creating lacquerwares was quite well organized in the Goryeo dynasty, and much of the operation was directly overseen by the state. These overseers were called superintendencies. Art historians are sure that there was a superintendency established specifically for meeting the special wishes of the Mongol court. The widely accepted explanation for this unusual superintendency for this Mongol court is that the Goryeo kingdom had actually come under control of the Mongols around 1270 after repeated aggression from them. During this period, the Mongol empress, who was the primary wife of Kublai Khan, had given orders for a set of chests to be created with the sole purpose of storing Buddhist canon scripture, also known as Tripitaka Koreana. This was likely prompted by the sheer technical perfection of the Goryeo lacquer work, combined with the available artisans and raw materials. This photo here shows a suture chest, which has been preserved to this day. I found this image on the British Museum website. Dr. Frick makes a clear point that while we cannot know for sure if the suture boxes ordered by the Mongol empress looked exactly like this, evidence indicates the similarities enough that we can safely assume they looked like this, or at least very similar. The other picture is a very detailed view of the suture box decors. This technique is the one with very, very thin cut mother of pearl inlay that builds geometric and floral designs. Specifically here you see peonies. Alright, so the last category of evidence that Dr. Frick references are the pieces themselves and the shared characteristics and motifs that she has found. There are so few lacquer objects with mother of pearl inlay left from the Goryeo kingdom, but they do have a lot of commonalities. As far as shapes go, there are not many hard right angles. Most corners and edges are rounded and soft with sloping horizontal edges. These qualities contribute to the natural forms that make up the beauty of Goryeo lacquerworks. There were a few materials used for inlaid designs, typically alongside each other. Colored tortoiseshell fragments from the hawksbill sea turtle were often used with mother of pearl inlays to create a striking surface appearance. Precious metals and metal wire were also used as inlay materials, both for aesthetics and for reinforcing the structures. Common motifs are geometric designs, chrysanthemums, and peonies, but peonies are the most popular. Here you see chrysanthemums and definitely some hawksbill tortoiseshell. So my overall analysis of this author is very positive. She's very convincing to me. Her information is very thoroughly researched. She has specific references for anything that might be unfamiliar to the average person and for further inquiries of interested parties. She is well-read, succinct, and still her passion and extensive knowledge come through in the writing. The evidence is sparse relative to other topics in art history, but what she has collected is strong in supporting her arguments. I am fully convinced, and a bit of her passion has actually rubbed off on me. Here are my sources. Thank you for watching.